A 15-year-old's handwritten testimony, ink smudged by tears, rests on a scarred wooden desk. The paper trembles slightly as a draft of wind slips through the cracked window, stirring the faint scent of old pine and cigarette ash. You are the journalist leaning over that same desk, the same dim light flickering over the ragged edge of the page, feeling the weight of a story that began to unfold here. By the time the sun rises, the secrets beneath this desk will have begun to echo far beyond Omaha. By the end, you'll see this scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Within 6 hours, a single name will reappear in a file that was never meant to be opened. That promise hangs in the air as we ask, how could a child sex abuse scandal, implicating some of the most powerful people in Omaha, Nebraska, be hidden for so long? In the late 1980s, Lawrence E. King Jr., a charismatic businessman who chaired the local Republican Party committee and ran a popular real estate firm, was accused of running a child sex ring. King was known for his habit of polishing the brass handles of his office doors each morning, a ritual that lent him an air of order even as chaos brewed beneath his polished surface. The story ignited in 1988, when a 15-year-old girl named Euless Washington walked into the Omaha police station, eyes rimmed with red, and whispered that King had forced her into prostitution. The credibility of Euless' testimony lay not only in the trembling syllables she spoke, but also in the way she clutched a faded photograph of her family, a small act of defiance that made the officers pause. One specific, concrete fact that complicates this story is that Euless' testimony was not solitary. Several other victims stepped forward, each recounting similar patterns of abuse, each holding a different stained bookmark from a library book they'd been forced to read. If you want to see where this goes, hit subscribe, because what comes next changes everything. In 1989, the Nebraska state legislature launched an investigation, led by Senator Loren Schmidt, a man who habitually sipped his coffee black and always kept a battered leather notebook on his desk, where he jotted down every constituency call. Schmidt's methodical note-taking would later become a thread that tugged at a hidden knot of corruption reaching the highest echelons of state government. The probe uncovered a web of cover-up that stretched into the shadows of the Capitol. Yet another layer unfurled, whispers of CIA involvement, a murky corridor where intelligence officers allegedly moved silently, their presence masked by ordinary paperwork. New evidence shows that King had ties to the CIA and the Republican Party, wielding those connections like a lever to intimidate and silence his victims. The documentary film Conspiracy of Silence, a meticulous chronicle of the Franklin scandal and its ties to a broader pedophile network, never aired, its reels locked away in a dusty archive. The footage, however, hinted at a pattern of omitted interviews, a deliberate decision shrouded in bureaucratic language. The twist in this tale is that the Franklin scandal does not stand alone, it is part of a larger pattern of child sex abuse and cover-up that threads through the most powerful corridors of the United States. Other scandals, linked by overlapping names and shared locations, begin to surface, each a piece of a sprawling puzzle. Everything shifts when we remember that the victims of the Franklin scandal are still alive, still reaching out for justice. Their hands, now older, still clutch the same crumpled pages, still demand answers. What will it take for them to finally obtain the justice they deserve, and how might we fortify institutions so that such atrocities cannot recur? The most unsettling information about the Franklin scandal is that its full scope remains unread, its key players still occupying positions of influence. The lingering question hangs, can we truly trust our institutions to shield us from predators like Lawrence E. King Jr.? Alternative explanations swirl. Some argue it was a straightforward case of child sex abuse, others see a grand conspiracy involving the CIA and the Republican Party. My own view settles on complexity, a truth layered like sediment, still waiting to be excavated. You remain that journalist, eyes fixed on the same desk where the story began. And now you must ask yourself, what else is hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered? I sit at that desk, the stack of files towering like a modest monument. The low hum of the fluorescent lights above matches the steady thrum of my own heartbeat. As I leaf through a battered folder, a sudden knock shatters the silence. The door swings open, and a former employee of the Omaha World Herald steps in, shoulders hunched, clutching a leather-bound folder. His hands tremble as he hands me the bundle, the weight of years pressing into his fingertips. Inside, I find internal memos, typed on the same yellowed paper the newsroom used in the 80s, detailing coordinated efforts to suppress the scandal. One sentence, buried beneath a paragraph about advertising revenue, reads:
Lawrence E. King Jr.
was not the mastermind behind the Franklin scandal. The words hit the table with the sound of a dropped stone, reverberating against the wood. My mind reels, the narrative I thought I understood begins to splinter. For hours I pore over the documents, the lamp's glow casting long shadows across the pages. Each line of bureaucratic jargon, each red-inked marginal note, becomes a clue pointing toward a figure whose name never appears in the headlines. The more I trace, the clearer the outline of a hidden player emerges, a high-ranking official whose signature appears on every suppression order, a man who habitually wore a silver tie clip that clicked softly with each movement, an invisible hand steering the narrative from behind a curtain of anonymity. As dusk settles, the sun's orange bleed fades, and I step back, the room now a tableau of paper, ink, and unanswered questions. The Franklin scandal is no longer merely a story of abuse, it is a story of power, of a system that bends and warps to protect those at its apex. The revelation that King was not the mastermind reshapes every testimony, every memo, every suppressed interview. It forces a reversal. The true architect may have been a figure whose influence stretched far beyond Omaha, a person whose name was deliberately erased from public record. This new perspective reframes the entire investigation, turning a single suspect into a sprawling network of complicity. The victims, still living, still bearing the scars of their trauma, now confront an even larger adversary. Their fight for justice becomes a battle against an unseen hierarchy, a fight that demands vigilance from law enforcement, the courts, and the community. To protect the vulnerable, we must cultivate a culture that listens, that believes, that refuses to let shadows dictate outcomes. I close the folder, the faint click echoing the final note of a song that never finished. The truth remains a moving target, a flickering candle in a windstorm of denial and denial. The question lingers, unanswerable yet urgent: will we dare to shine a light into those dark corners, or will we allow the silence to swallow the next confession?
The folder I hold
contains a single, unsigned line that changes everything. All records of the investigation were destroyed on the night of June 12, 1991. That single sentence, tucked away in a bureaucratic footnote, rewrites the chronology we thought we knew, suggesting that the very evidence we trusted may have been purposefully erased. What else has been quietly erased?